Hello everybody, we going to discuss House of Usher TV show episode 6, 7. And Spartacus House of Usher is 2025-2026 series. So let's talk about a little bit more of what happened right before episode 6. First of all, Spartacus House of Usher series explores an alternative history where Usher, a former slave and lowlife, has ascended to become a lanista, owner of a gladiator school, and dominus master. High-born Roman characters often treat Usher with contempt, viewing him as a subhuman ex-slave who is attempting to move above his natural station. So here we can see exactly those who treat Ashur as subhuman. One of those people was, of course, Caesar. And as Ashur gains power, the narrative focuses on his efforts to navigate the political world of the triumvirate, potentially seeking to further elevate his station by aligning with figures like Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar and his wife Cornelia arrived in episode 5, if I remember correctly. The primary goal of Julius Caesar was not just to attend Ludus Apollinaris games, gladiator games, but a part of going to those games, Caesar basically he was claiming the house of Ashur. That villa basically was claimed the house of Caesar in front of all the guests. So this is one of those ways Caesar and his wife humiliating Ashur and remind him of his place, that he was basically given this ludus. He was given this position by Rome, by Crassus. They remind him every time possible that he is just a former slave. And Cornelia is a high-born Roman patrician and the daughter of Lucius Cornelius Cinna, who was historically one of the most powerful and wealthy figures in the Roman Republic in the show's context. So basically his wife, Caesar's wife, even more of a socialist. She carries that name, and Cornelia carries a name that is much bigger than that of her husband Julius Caesar. She is significantly wealthier than Caesar and effectively funds his political career and lifestyle. So, not only does she have that name, but she funds her husband's political career and lifestyle. And those facts, they are not just made up by me, it's literally official information. So they both basically not just guests of the house of Usher, they are literally claiming this place, they becoming a new power that basically Usher cannot go against. And in episode 6, they are gonna be even more of that power, because they are going to basically completely ruin and undermine Usher's domination in his own villa. So after basically Caesar departed to his duties, and he was basically going to see Pompey to make his deals with Pompey, and he basically left his wife Cornelia, and she stands within these walls of House of Usher, because not only she wants to further solidify her power in this villa, she wants to show basically Usher in not only him but everybody who works, who belongs to Usher, that basically she is just the real owner of this place. And she can do whatever she wants, actually. Putting this in more simpler sentence, she is claiming every meter, every passable room, every corner of this villa, from bath to all other places. She can basically do whatever she wants with whoever she wants. And Usher cannot say anything against her will. He only can watch and witness how his basically respected villa slowly but surely falling apart. But this is not just because Cornelia. Even before Cornelia, something happened. And basically this started happening in very first episode of this season, I would say. Because Cornelia, she just made it even worse. But she didn't start that, for example, rift between Messia and Hilara, two house slaves of Ashur. Because that rift started even before her arrival. And the shifting loyalties of Hilara and Messia center on a volatile mix of unrequited love, jealousy, and Roman manipulation. When Cornelia Cinna arrives, she senses the rift between the two women. Basically, she recognizes that in Usher's villa, it's not so stable. Even before her arrival, it was already shattered. She can just make it even more complicated, but Cornelia's goal is not just to show that she has more power. She doesn't want just to be flexing. Technically, she doesn't need to show anybody anything. Everybody knows exactly who she is. Her goal also was basically to strengthen relationship with other people, like Senator Gabinius and his wife, and by using this house of Usher, she basically bringing Senator Gabinius's wife and his daughter to make this spectacle. She forced Usher to line up his gladiators, but she wanted to see contests of more intimate nature. That means fightings and swinging swords, not so appealing to woman eye. She wanted to see something more sensual. She using this moment not just because her preferences and her desires. She using this moment to capitalize on Usher's properties, including his men gladiators, to use this basically display of his best men and to kind of strengthen her relationship, her and Caesar's relationship with Senator Gabinius's wife, Cassutia. She let her choose anybody from that lineup of gladiators. She also let her daughter, Viridia, choose somebody. Those chosen, those they choose, should do wherever they want. They basically picked 3 men out of the lineup, but there was a little bit unexpected surprise for 3 guests of the House of Usher. But currently, Usher has no literal control. He has no strong control over the villa. Basically, Cornelia asked Usher if he was also a gladiator, and as we know, he was, and a good one. So to prove that, she asked him basically to show evidence of that claim. The only way to show that evidence for Cornelia, for a noble woman, from her perspective, it's to witness his physical form, which is the evidence of being a gladiator, and evidence of your physical strength. Basically, she she not only humiliating Ashur in front of guests, she making him basically strip his dignity to display his physical form and to entertain these women. But one of those women is Viridia, who is also She holds feelings for Usher, and they have mutual love interest. They have basically shared multiple situations when they almost like kissed or something like this, but they were never given that opportunity to actually express their feelings because of their difference in this differences in social status. They basically, their positions, a former slave and a noble woman, make it almost impossible to publicly go and just to be together, you know. So we know exactly that for Viridia and Usher, the most possible way to be together is in private and absent her mother, of course, because her mother stands the biggest opposition of her daughter going after a former slave. This undermines their family and their reputation. Everything she cares about is reputation. But what Cornelia cares about is basically seducing everybody in this villa to achieve her own goals and her husband's goals. She basically offered that Casutia should marry off her daughter Viridia to one of the Caesar's allies. She made this on purpose to further basically solidify their relationship and make this marriage as her leverage. And they basically discussing this in this most, I would say, chill atmosphere. She created this like vibe, this specific moment to make Casutia agree, to basically lean her towards agreement. She made everything for Casutia to agree to marry off her daughter. But as we know, Viridia, she only holds feelings for Ashur and nobody else, ever since he basically rescued her from pirate attack that was basically staged by same people, Caesar, and basically ever since Ashur stood as hero, Viridia basically, she was in love ever since. There is another big argument. Now Messia, she developed feelings for Cornelia, since basically her previous love interest, Messia's previous love interest, Hilara, rejected her feelings. She didn't return those, and those unrequired feelings made Messiah so easily to fall under Cornelia's side, to fall under her protection, let's say. Now Messiah is under Cornelia's protection. She doesn't have to listen to any orders of others inside this villa. But Usher still remains her dominus. But now she calls Cornelia Domina, and she refers to her as Domina of this villa, which of course frustrates Hilara because she sees how easily Messiah switches sides, and it's making like her resentment even bigger because she previously rejected Messiah, and now this rejection growing into jealousy because Ashur also not returning those feelings Hilara holds for him. She knows that basically Ashur stands her dominance, but now basically situation can even further deteriorate since Cornelia, she basically shaking up the stable villa. Now it's just chaos, literally. She basically intervenes upon any moment possible, whether it's just showcasing Usher's gladiators, drinking wine, discussing accounts. She can intervene upon every moment she wants. She basically exerting herself and ordering Usher's slaves. She commanding everybody. Right now, Usher kind of one of those slaves in Cornelia's eyes. She sees him as a former slave, and she basically stands as former slave for Cornelia because their origins, it always gonna be impacting the relationship. And since basically Cornelia commanding this villa right now, she ordering Ashur to pursue, to convince Gabinius to marry off his very daughter, Viridia, a woman that Ashur currently in love with. To sway Gabinius, Ashur needs to go and make it happen, given that he is basically going marry Viridia. Even if it's only in his dreams, he knows that he cannot basically let it happen. He cannot let woman she likes marry somebody else. She cannot let some of Caesar's allies to get hands on woman she loves, Ashur loves. Meanwhile, basically, there is another situation that is not under Usher's control, because his house slave, Messia, she already switched sides. And unlike Usher, Cornelia knows. She knows all the ways to make Messia comfortable being on her side rather than on Usher's. She knows how to be assertive. She knows how to show love when needed. She knows not only how to rule, but she knows how to show loving ruler, because she is not only just a noble woman who arrived basically and took over this place. She is very affectionate, and meanwhile she is so tricky. At this point, Messia basically, she doesn't basically know exactly if this mutual or if this feelings just again unrequired. She doesn't know, just because Cornelia, she can be assertive and she can be so intense sometimes. And if she basically laid her eyes on somebody, she will not let that go so easy. If she wants something, she just takes that. So Usher basically witnessed his house slave kissing Cornelia. Every possible chance Cornelia has, she using to seduce or to create some situation that basically further undermines Usher's control over his own villa. He sees basically that now his house slave Messia, she is basically on loose, and Cornelia found Messia as a woman meant for more delicate work rather than just filling bath, filling cups, pouring wine, serving Usher. She found her more of a gentle person who's supposed to be not just a slave, but something more. So that basically approach, of course, swayed Messia so easily, and she basically switched sides so quickly because of that approach and Cornelia's tactics. She not just tricky, she not just assertive, she is attractive as well. She can be just attracted to Cornelia physically. They know exactly, basically, once Cornelia gone, once she departed, Usher regains his control over Messiah, and Messiah returns to her duties. So she uses this very moment, every moment, to her advantage. Maybe she needs to go with Cornelia, and maybe she needs to leave this place behind. But it's never gonna happen, because Cornelia, as much power as she has, I'm pretty sure she cannot take somebody's slave and just go wherever she wants. She can assert her power. She can basically show complete domination within this villa. But if she takes one of Usher's slaves, for Usher it will be complete downfall, not only just ruining his reputation within this villa, but it will emotionally impact others, including Hilara, who currently in this state of jealousy, who basically previously rejected Messiah. But now I think she developed even something for Messiah, since she witnessed Cornelia so easily swayed Messiah, and despite that, Hilara still remains loyal to Ashur. She holds her position as Vilica of this villa, but she just blindly believes that Ashur returning feelings she has, but actually Ashur never truly was in love with Hilara. He was in love with Viridia from the very first moment of their interaction in this TV show. Even being under opium, even putting down his guards, even making it so blurred for Usher to recognize who is in front of him. Even letting his elevated house slave Hilara call him by name and not to refer to him as Dominus but just Usher. Not making this situation beneficial for Hilara. She still remains secondary for Usher, because his primary love interest is Viridia. But there is no chance Viridia and Usher again go outside publicly expressing their feelings. There is also a mother exerting her stance and once more time reminding Viridia that basically she cannot be with a former slave on public, holding hands, or even being too close. Meanwhile, Cornelia's plan, her plan to marry off Cassutia's daughter Viridia to her husband's ally, to Caesar's ally, this plan basically ruined by Usher. He directly asked Cassutia's husband not to let his daughter marry that man. He asked specifically that. And he should have basically asked the opposite. Cornelia ordered Ashur to make that possible, that marriage between Viridia, a woman that Ashur loves, and Caesar's ally. So Ashur made this situation worse by basically going and telling Senator Gabinius that he should never let his daughter marry that man. But he didn't basically offer his replacement. He didn't offer himself instead of that man. He didn't reveal his feelings for Gabinius' daughter Viridia. But I think that Cassutia, her mother, already knows, and she seems to be aware of what's happening between Ashur and Viridia. So this is why she is intervening every possible moment she sees Ashur close to her daughter, and she basically interrupting every moment between them. Finally, at the end of episode 7, Cornelia rejects to support Ashur's participation in auction in a bid to buy the household of Opiter. Cornelia made it impossible for Ashur to buy that household, to buy what belonged to Opiter, who is currently dead. She rejected her and Caesar's participation in providing any money to Ashur's activities, including his participation in this auction. She showed Ashur that if he plays dirty, if he goes and telling otherwise to Gabinius, she does the same. She basically playing the same game. She shows him that he cannot trick her. She is the one who is tricking. She is the one who 3 steps who is the one basically who knows how to play this game. After that situation, Ashur was humiliated in front of all the people at this marketplace. In episode 8, I think his situation is gonna be more stable once Cornelia is gone, once she is departed, once she is not occupying his villa, she can focus on Ludi Apollinaris games. Once she's gone, he can focus, he can regain his full control of the villa and focus on the gladiators and prepare them for future fights, instead of basically pleasing these Romans. He can focus on what basically he's supposed to. And that was always the arena and Ludi Apollinaris games. And the name of his fighter Achillea already known once she basically won a fight in that arena. Her name became viral, and Viridia was one of those women who supported this choice to send a woman in the arena and to fight against men, which was basically never done before. If Usher further solidify his position in the arena, if he wins, if his fighters win one more Primus fight, the main event of the arena, of the Ludi Apollinaris games, he will make it less complicated for Viridia and himself to be basically at least on public, because his name will less remind people of his former slave status, and he will kind of rewrite history, since this is the alternative timeline. It's already rewritten. It's already rewritten history. It's already the alternative story. But in this basically timeline, the final for Usher, I think, will be the most unpredictable. At the same time, he can show everybody, including Caesar and his wife Cornelia, and all others who doubted basically Usher's ambitions. He can prove that basically he was given this ludus, he was given this villa for a reason. So if we see that happening, I think all other problems, including the rift between his house slaves, all other situations, they are gonna be less of a problem. Because that one goal is what he should be focused on. So I think we are going to see that happening in next episode. But thank you for watching, and see you next time. Once we get more episodes, I'm going to show more. And of course, you can watch this without any commentary. Of course, I'm just retelling you everything. And if you have already watched, you probably know everything. But there is always something that I feel I can add, or I can not explain, but I can discuss in my own way. I can add more my own thoughts, but I always want to keep this lore accurate. So I'm not gonna make up things if it's possible, but if I made up something, this is just because I want to keep this content coming more often. So I hope that I made this as much accurate as possible, given that episode 7 just came out yesterday. We have already made this stream, and I'm going to basically produce a short video about House of Usher, but with way more extra information. So, if you like the show, if you was even slightly interested in what I was saying right here, please show your support, and I will make sure that short video is gonna be reduced to just pure entertainment. It will be just pure entertainment with music, with editing, intense editing, the one that I like the most. But these streams, they are not aimed just to make explanations or retelling the script. These streams, primarily, I made them just to make my short videos and any other content made out of these streams. I use these streams to make short format, to make shorts, to make videos. So the initial purpose was just to go live and share my thoughts, but I started to use these streams to mix together the most interesting parts and to find short format, to find content that basically refined and just more intense. So I would love to see your opinion on the show. I would love to see your vote, who you prefer better, who you love from this TV show, who you are rooting for, who you see succeeding, and what do you think about Messia and Cornelia relationship, even though it's obviously not just relationship. It is a demonstration of Usher's inability to just assert his power when somebody like Cornelia is already dominating the space. There is nobody can go against her will and her whims, her desires. They have to be met no matter what. If she wants Messiah, if she wants her as slave, if she wants her as companion, she will make sure that happens. So do you like this type of relationship unfolding in this season, or do you prefer something more stable but still unrequired from Hilara and Ashur? Because Hilara still hopes, she still believes that Ashur at some point he will return those feelings. And episode 7 basically showed perfectly that Ashur can be a little bit soft once he got that wine and opium. Cornelia basically tainted that wine with opium and gave that to Usher. Once his mind was blurred, once basically he was hallucinating, he showed that side of his personality just hidden inside this cold man. So do you like this type of relationship, even though it needs for Ashur to be influenced by opium or something to show his true emotions? He needs something to affect his brain to express emotions that he actually holds, maybe. To put down his guards and to show his house slave, who was always on his side, that he can be that man, but he's still basically doing that unconsciously because his conscious knows that the only woman he holds feelings for remains Viridia. And do you like this couple? Because in this particular situation, Hilara seems to be fooled. She seems to be under this affection. Ashur under affection of opium, but Hilara under Ashur's affection. He was always her opium. This relationship, this couple particularly, seems to be more based on unrequired feelings and deep-seated emotions that Ashur only able to express once basically his brain got influenced by something. But in Cornelia and Messiah's situation, they can truly and openly discuss, talk about anything, express feelings. Cornelia can show her vulnerability. He doesn't care about what other people think, what Ashur thinks particularly. he may be doing that just to mock Usher, to make him more uncomfortable within his own villa. He may be using Messia just to mock Usher and to humiliate Usher in front of Viridia and other people. Maybe she knows that Viridia kind of holds the feelings for Ashur. She knows, maybe she feels that. So she knows exactly how to trigger Ashur, how to make him pissed off. So in this situation, I would choose this couple just because their connection, even for Ashur, influenced by opium, seems to be more genuine. But this seems to be more played by Cornelia and specifically orchestrated to piss off Ashur, just to mock him and to tempt Ashur. Kind of, she fooling around, she basically seducing his slaves. He's showing him she can do basically everything with whoever she wants. So this relationship based on that, but it's still more open and more, I would say, for Messia, this relationship, it definitely, it makes her more comfortable, more confident. But this relationship, it doesn't make Hilara confident in her own position as elevated slave, because now she is not sure, after she witnessed how Usher easily falling under Cornelia and Caesar's control and losing his dominance inside his own villa. She's just torn between Usher and handling this household, and at the same time she doesn't have full control over other slaves. Being Vilica, it means that she basically an elevated house slave. She controlled other slaves, including Hilara, but now she is not controlling her anymore. So I hope that the final is gonna be not just about the arena and fighting. I hope they basically find a really good conclusion for this, particularly Hilara and Messia storyline. Thank you for watching. I see you next time. Goodbye.